Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane's been working with buyers and sellers in the Missoula market for over 25 years and shares her insights on the local housing market. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO. Nice of you to join us for Missoula Real Estate Today this weekend, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. We'll find out what's bugging you this weekend on the program with our guest, Nate Nunnally. Nate is the owner of Custom West Pest Control. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I guess welcome back to the show. You've been on before, right?
Yeah, we've done it before.
Yeah. Well, give us a little bit about your background, how you got involved in Custom West Pest Control, and what led you to being the pest control guy.
Very good. So Dave Terry, who started Custom West in 1987, was an old friend of mine, and when I needed pest control service, he was my go-to guy. He always did a great job. And unfortunately, in 2010, Dave passed away, and his wife, Karen, kind of ended up with a business and needed some help running it, and she tracked me down because I wasn't doing anything serious with my life at the time, I guess, and made me go to work. So her and I put our heads together and kind of made a business plan, and we managed to grow it into a pretty widespread and great little business. We actually cover the entire western half of the state of Montana with it now.
Excellent. Well, most people probably assume, you're the bug exterminator, but depending on where you live, I'm sure you have to eliminate things that are just a wee bit bigger than bugs at times, right?
That's true. Interestingly enough, as Karen and I were taking over the business, we realized we received an awful lot of calls to get squirrels out of attics or skunks or raccoons out of areas they shouldn't be, and a lot of other critters that are around western Montana. So we actually ended up creating a wildlife division for our company, and we employ what I call Montana's version of Call of the Wild Man, Andy. He's our wildlife specialist. Andy has 25 years of experience of not just getting the critters out, but also, repairing areas that have allowed the critters to get into a structure where you don't want them. And he combines that with a background in wildlife biology. He actually holds a degree in that. So he's like a walking encyclopedia. The guy's pretty incredible. If he gets you cornered, he can educate you pretty quick on all things flora and fauna.
You've already touched on this just a bit, but what are some of the more common customer needs in western Montana?
So with literally Montana's varied seasons from month to month, you can find a different concern. The phones will ring and we'll get requests for what the given insect of the month is in Montana, which actually led us to create what we call our Western Montana pest calendar. You can find on our website. But some of the more prolific things, of course, in Western Montana are spiders. Yeah. People just really don't care to have those spiders in their homes. Spiders definitely have a place and help us in pest control, but we just don't want to have them in our house. One of the more scary individuals in the spider realm that we find around western Montana is what's called a Hobo Spider. It's actually a European import, along with a lot of other common pests that we have, like the European wasp. There's a lot of imports that came over here that were actually non-native. The hobos started proliferating out of the harbors of Seattle about 30 years ago, and they're slowly moving their way west and south. It seems like I can remember hobos being around Missoula for a long, long time. But and I'm, oddly enough, in pest control, one of my biggest fears or paranoias is about spiders. But finding a good way to deal with those spiders, it was a little bit of a challenge. But through our national associations and affiliations with our suppliers, we're able to find a really good product that helps us keep the hobos at bay around here.
Is there anything in particular about the hobo that makes it a little more difficult?
So they're a large spider.
They're tall.
They like to walk. Yeah, exactly. They walk on their tiptoes, and if you can't get that product to their body to get into their cuticle or their exoskeleton, the product won't have an effect. So finding the right product that will actually cause them to be affected is a little bit of a challenge. The other thing that is very interesting about the hobo spider too is where they want to dwell. You'll find them very commonly in garage spaces. They like to be in basements where it's kind of seems like a little bit cooler, a little bit darker. You can always identify them through their webbing. They'll make a very discerned funnel shaped web, and that's how they live. So that's one way you can discern them, other than just seeing the ugly buggers themselves.
This is Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate and our guest, Nate Nunnally, the owner of Custom West Pest Control in Missoula. And, Nate, if this were easy, everybody just, go buy a couple cans of Raid, call it good. What is it about a professional that helps ensure a problem pest is really, really being attacked?
Well, there are some folks who want to do it themselves, and we're not opposed to that. We're really in the business of doing this job for folks that don't want to do it themselves, and we find a lot of people that really just don't care to have to deal with ants or spiders or wasps on their own, and that's where we come in. But part of the reason that we're set apart as professionals is we do have access to what are EPA registered products. Now, most products that you find out there in the way of pesticides are EPA registered. But we're able to use products that have a long-lasting residual, and that long last means 30 days, generally up to 30 days. We don't really have products that last much longer than that, unless they're for specific insects, and the case in point being like a termiticide. If we were having to deal with termites, we actually use a product that can have up to a 6-month residual lay to it. The products that you buy over the shelf, really kind of cater to our immediate gratification of I can spray the spider and watch him curl up and die. But it won't have a long-lasting effect, and so the next generation comes around and proliferates. Whereas with our product, once we lay it down, the spider walks through it, and then the next spider 2 weeks later comes along, he's still going to be affected. And so that residual effect really allows us to be set apart from just being able to do it yourself.
Well, take us through a typical call, if there is such a thing. Hey, Custom West, I got swarms of bees on the patio, or I just found another big old spider in the house. What do you first have to do to make sure you're going to use the right treatment? In fact, when I was looking at your website, I like that acronym you had, pests, PESTS, methodology. But what is the step-by-step process?
So the step-by-step process is to meet with the individual and talk to them, find out what their concerns are. And when I train our technicians to go out and do the job, I really emphasize what I call the 3 I's, and that's interview, inspect, and then instruct. So we're going to talk to them and find out what their concerns are. Then we're going to look at the site and see what they're experiencing. And then we determine what our course of action is. And so then that's the instruction. We'll explain to them how we use our product. Number one question we get is it safe for my pets and my kids? Mm-hmm. And we always have to answer that question, that we are still using a pesticide, but we're using modern, chemically engineered, well-engineered products that are so specific and so low toxicity that they really affect what they're designed for, and that's the insects that's listed on the label. So they're a very low hazard to insects and pests. In fact, it's very common for us to treat a home while somebody's sitting in there. And other than the pooch following us around at our heels, checking out what we're doing, we may just ask them to hold them back. 99.95% of what we lay down is generally water. Water is the carrier, and we do that in kind of a fine spray. And what we're doing is just creating a spot spray at ankle height or below for the most part. There's exceptions to that, but for the most part, that's what a treatment looks like. And we'll do that on the interior of your home in all areas. Unless there's areas you don't want treated, of course, we'll always stay away from those. And then we want to do an exterior perimeter. So we're kind of fighting it twofold. We want to stop the ones that are inside, and then we also want to prevent the ones that are on the outside from getting to the inside. So we set up an exterior perimeter barrier as well.
I would imagine you do a little detective work all the time, too, don't you? You get on site and you explain how you're going to help eradicate the problem, but you're probably looking around and kind of inspecting various parts of the house or the outside, the yard, and can probably tell a lot of your customers, well, here's why you probably have the problem.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it. When you do your inspection, is the homeowner doing things that are conducive to the insects coming in? Like, for instance, they have a house full of flies and they're leaving their doors open. I mean, sometimes it can be just a common sense thing like that, but people don't really think about it. So we'll ask them to shut their doors. Vegetation that is set too close to the home really can become a problem for a lot of homes. You really do want to keep about 12 inches of clearance between your landscaping, your vegetation, and your home. Also, things that we do in the way of storage. All of us tend to have that hoarding gene. I think I'm guilty. But where we have too much clutter, or if we're not keeping control of a real common one is recyclables. Everybody has their recyclables, and they have their aluminum cans that have the sugars, and then all of a sudden they've got an ant problem. And so you have to think, okay, I've got to clean up that area to keep the ants from wanting to feed on the sugars. So things like that. And then there can be breaches in the home, whether it's seals around your doors or windows, especially that seal that goes under the bottom side of the garage door. Those are things that we'll point out and say you may want to, have a garage door specialist come in and repair that for you. Very often, mice are getting under garage doors. We see that happen a lot.
Yeah. This is Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest is Nate Nunnally with Custom West Pest Control. And Nate, if you want to, feel free to go into detail on this if you'd like. One spray obviously does not fit all with respect to the environment and a home or business owner's property. Are there a lot of different treatments depending on the pest you got to deal with?
There really are. There are a lot of different pesticides across the world. We're in Missoula and with Custom West, it's our policy to always work with the least toxic products that we can find because we do want to be environmentally responsible. We're always very consciously aware, and we covered in our training about drift if we're spraying on the exterior of a home. We don't want to do anything that would affect our pollinators, so we're very careful around blossoming shrubs or flowers, and of course gardens, anything like that. So given that there is such a vast array, that I'm in a constant process of trying to gain information from new products that are out there. I'm involved in the National Pest Management Association, which allows me to talk with people across the country and even across the world about what they're having success with, whether it's for hobo spiders or it's for ants or for wasps or whatever. And so it's a constant process. There are a lot of varied and myriad pesticides that are out there, some that work good in western Montana and some that don't. And we've had to find that out through trial and error. Yeah.
Trapping critters. You mentioned your wildlife specialist that kind of deals with the squirrels, the skunks, the raccoons, the rabbits. I don't know what, but a little bit about that process. I mean, is he trying to snare something? Is he trying to trick them into the trapdoor box? Or what? Yeah. What does that guy have to do?
So the number one thing we're always going to look for is what we can do to exclude the animal from getting to where we don't want them to be. So when it comes to like birds and bats, for instance, if bats are getting in the attic, obviously there's a breach somewhere that they're getting through in the attic. The amazing thing is a little brown bat can actually fit through a 1/4-inch crack. And bats are habitual, so if they get into an attic space and they go through a generation of raising their babies, the next season they're going to come back and try to get into that exact same place. So being able to seal that up and just make it so that the bats can't get in there or that the birds can't get in there. When we have a skunk that's getting under a home or a raccoon that's invading an area, we're going to look at what are they using to get into the home or into the area we don't want them to be, and we repair that. So our wildlife guy, Andy, he's as much of a construction guy as he is a wildlife guy. He knows how to take apart a soffit or fascia on a house and clean it up and get it rebuilt so that the animals can't get in. But that's your number one go-to is just to simply exclude the animal. You don't want to trap them or move them and then have them come right back.
Yeah. Sounds like you found a real keeper in this Andy guy.
Oh, yeah, Andy's wonderful. Yeah. But I like most of our team. We've been able to, and it's taken some time to do, but we've developed a team of guys. Pest control's not for everybody. It was the last thing in the world I thought I would end up doing. But there's a lot of gratification to it, and that gratification comes in building relationships with our clients. You almost find that relationship is more important to them than actually taking care of their pest control problem. We see a lot of our clients on a very regular basis, some of them on a monthly basis, and we have clients that have been with us the entire history of the company.
Well, one that I know gives people the creeps is, besides spiders, of course, is bed bugs, because they're so small, and it's kind of sinister-like. Not a bug that is associated with unsanitary conditions around the house. What is their behavior, their motive, and how do we eliminate them? I'm sure that people, my house is immaculate, I can't possibly have bed bugs because it's associated with, I think a lot of people almost put it in the cockroach family, thinking, well, that must have some filthy environment here, but not the case.
So the psychology behind dealing with bed bugs is an interesting thing, because in Montana we're very used to mosquitoes, and mosquitoes are vectors of a lot of different diseases. But we really don't have a big problem with swatting a mosquito off of our skin, and realizing that we've got a little bit of a mosquito bite, and that doesn't seem to bother us near as much as when we find out we've had a bed bug that was feeding on us in the middle of the night, in the middle of our peaceful bliss and sleep. And that just really makes people's skin crawl. The interesting thing is bed bugs to this day are not known vectors of any kind of a bloodborne pathogen or disease. However, there's just something in our human psyche that does not deal well with knowing that something's been crawling on us in our sleep. So the thing to realize about bed bugs, their number one mode of action or transfer is through hitchhiking. And so little tips that I can throw out there for people is, if you travel a lot, or if you travel at all and you stay in a hotel or a motel, don't put your luggage on the floor next to the bed. Put your luggage up on the dresser, or better yet, even on the rack, or hang them in the closet. Because what bed bugs do is they hang out generally near the head of the bed. That's where they start. When you get to more severe infestations, you'll find them all over the areas of the bed. But they hang out around the headboards and under the mattresses, even in between the sheets. And when you fall asleep at night and you're restful and you're not moving around, they can detect your exhalation, the carbon dioxide that you exhale, and you being still, and they'll come and feed on you for a blood meal. And then once they're done, they retreat, and they go back into their hiding place. Now, the reason they hitchhike is they have kind of a traumatic reproductive process where the male pierces the female's side. She doesn't really care for that. And so she'll leave the group and go find a place to get away from all the males that are trying to breed. Yeah. Well, she does that, and she's pregnant. She crawls into your luggage because you put it next to the head of your bed on the floor. And you take the little bugger home, and, she goes back to work, and she has her own brood on board, and all of a sudden you've got your own little personal bed bug colony. And that's very common. It really has nothing to do with your economic status or anything like that. It has nothing to do with clutter. Generally, when we see a large infestation, it's because somebody has ignored the situation. Either they didn't realize what was going on, or they didn't feel that they knew how to deal with it, or couldn't afford it. And the longer you let it go on, the more expensive it can be to take care of it. Generally, when people say, you know what, I think I've got a bed bug, I'm seeing these bites all in a row on my skin, and I'm finding fecal marks on their sheets, things like that, we can come in, do an inspection, find out what's going on, and do an effective treatment for much lower cost than if you let that problem proliferate.
What is the treatment?
So the treatment it can be as simple as using a chemical pesticide to treat the product. One of the first routes of dealing with any issue with bed bugs is encasing your mattress. They make a bed bug proof encasement that goes around the mattress and the box spring. They sell those for retail about 3 times the price of what we get them for wholesale. So we made ourselves a wholesaler. We can actually sell bed bug proof encasements.
Wow. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, and our guest, Nate Nunnally with Custom West Pest Control. I was on your website, of course, before the show, Nate, kind of looking around. I like the seasonal Western Montana pest calendar, which is probably kind of a handy, fun thing to have for people.
Yeah, we found that one of our marketing guys helped us develop that, and we got a great response out of it. And it just kind of helps people understand why what is going on is going on. So, and it literally is by month, because our seasons change so rapidly, and sometimes it feels like winter's never over. But I can tell you, in the pest control business, something I never realized until I was in it is we still have spiders and ants in the middle of December and January.
Sure.
You can get a hot sunny day in the middle of winter and have box elders all over the exterior of your home, box elder bugs, and then, of course, in the fall, everything tries to push in. As it starts cooling off, as a matter of survival, insects, and they're different insects are overwinters. Some wasps are overwinters, flies overwinter, and of course mice try to push in really hard. So all of those things can be influenced, and that's why we came up with that calendar so you can kind of understand what's going on.
What is the July showcased insect? Do you know?
So July showcase right now, our phone is ringing off the hook for the hobo spiders.
Okay.
And
All right.
it'll continue to ring about the hobos from now until early September.
Wow. Okay. Tell us about one or more of the strangest service calls you've ever had to experience at Custom West.
Well, people. One thing that comes to mind, one story. Folks will go to the the local farm and feed store in the spring and for Easter, and they'll buy baby geese. And once you raise geese to be adults, you find out they're not so cute anymore. And we actually had some folks that released 3 geese into the ponds behind Paddy Creek Market.
Sure.
And those geese were chasing all of the ducks and other natural occurring animals out of there because they're just kind of nasty buggers. So we actually had to go do a goose roundup, and we had a local resident that actually took the geese on and took them out to, I believe she had a farmland area where she, let the geese live on their life without bothering anybody else. So we run into interesting things like that. Very common thing to have to extricate a bird out of a dryer vent or a bathroom vent. Those things happen. Trying to think of some of the more interesting things we have. We've found squirrels that have found their way inside of homes and businesses, and it becomes kind of a rodeo trying to get the squirrel cornered and get him trapped so that we can take him out of the building. It definitely has its days. We're nothing like some of those shows you see on the Discovery Channel or whatever, but we do have our own little sense of that at times. Yeah.
Hand in hand with that, success stories. Anything in particular, either commercial or residential, that you've done at Custom West that you thought, man, we really nailed that when others couldn't? Anything you're exceptionally proud of?
A few years ago, we had a 60-unit apartment complex that wasn't actually in Missoula, but it was in a town not too far from here. And L-shaped building, and it had 30 units on one L and 30 units on the other L, and they had a roach infestation. And they called us up and said, listen, we've been dealing with this for several years. We're not having any success, and they'd even called one of the big national companies. And I didn't realize that until the day we went to do the job. But I called up my supplier, and I said, hey, here's what we're faced with. And he says, okay, I'm going to give you a prescription. You want to follow this. And it's going to take you a little bit of time. It may take 3 or 4 quarters to actually get it eradicated if it's that widespread. So we went in and we followed that prescription with regular treatment. And in less than a year's time, we had 100% success. And when I found out that one of the larger national companies had actually gone in there and attempted to win the battle, and we won it over that made me feel pretty good about how we were handling things from a professional level. But that's been, I think, a huge part of our success at Custom West is I don't know, I'm a voracious reader, so I'm constantly reading all the latest, newest, and greatest stuff, and I love networking across the country. My mentor is a guy that owns a $20 million pest control company in Jacksonville, Florida. He's a great guy. I can call him any time of the day or night pretty much and say, hey, here's what I'm challenged with, and sometimes not even just on dealing with pests, but dealing with business.
Yeah.
So.
It's too bad he hasn't been able to help you overcome your fear of spiders.
Yeah, that's one thing. I don't think he's not a psychologist. So,
Missoula Real Estate today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate, and our guest Nate Nunnally with Custom West Pest Control, and also a special thank you to some of Diane's marketing partners that help bring us the show every week. Rob Fleming with Man Mortgage, Miles Link of Opportunity Bank of Montana, and Carol Blodgett from MakeItMissoula.com. Nate, what are some easy, common sense things we can do around the house that most of us probably don't do around the house that might help decrease potential insect problems?
Check your door seals. Threshold seals wear out. The seals on the bottoms of the doors and around the jambs can tend to get a lot of wear with people moving in and out. Make sure your screens are repaired and in good shape. That way you can keep the flies out. The flies will really try to push into your home, especially as the weather starts cooling in September and on into October. And like we spoke about before, keeping vegetation cut back away from your home. Don't let tree limbs rest over the roof of your house. Those tree limbs even become a route for squirrels to get on your roof and start running around, and they'll explore and find ways to get into your attic because, they're looking for shelter where it's nice and warm and cozy to spend the winter.
Yeah. Since we're on a real estate show here, of course, and there's probably people in the listening audience that are planning a real estate move, maybe moving from one home to the other. And one of your services that I think is a great idea is some kind of a pre-treatment prior to moving into that new home.
Yeah, before you've moved all your furniture in is a great time to have us come in and do a very thorough treatment of your house, just to, so you don't have to move into your new home and worry about spiders crawling around or having an ant infestation or those little things that pop up. So we always encourage people to give us consideration before they get moved into their new home.
Oh, no, the exterminator is going to come and spray inside and contaminate and poison everything in the house, and your indoor products are much safer than a lot of people fear, aren't they?
They are. I stay away from the term safe, just as a matter of course, but we're always going to use what's least toxic. I will state this: 30 years ago, the pest control industry used some pretty wicked and pretty crazy stuff. In fact, at one point, we thought we had eradicated the bed bug population in the world. And bed bugs came back with a vengeance. And if people want to know if we have bed bugs in Missoula, yes, we do. They're all over the world. And because I think we travel so much, we find them a lot. But using least toxic methods that are mandated not only by the Environmental Protection Agency, but also by local and state law, really ensure that we're not using things that are going to harm pets and harm people as we're taking care of the pest issues. And again, we're using dosage volumes that are as low as 0.03% by volume in dilution rate. And the reason we're able to use that low dilution rate is because spiders are small, and all it takes is a molecule of product to stick to them to have an effect. So it allows us to really use a much more reduced level of hazard in the application of pesticides and be very successful.
Excellent. Nate Nunnally with Custom West Pest Control here on Missoula Real Estate today. Well, Nate, believe it or not, we're almost out of time. You get to promote your team and business now. Well, we'll get to contact information here in a second, but you get to jump up on the old soapbox. Why should we choose Custom West Pest Control?
Well, so Custom West Pest Control is a local company that has been in business for 32 years. It employs 9 families. That's, in other words, we have 9 employees. All of us are family people, all locally based out of Missoula, with the exception of one technician that works in Helena and handles a lot of our work on the I-15 corridor. But so we're a local Montana group. We provide professional level services in both the commercial and residential aspects, and we've been able to secure a position and a national reputation so that we do a lot of subcontracting for some of the bigger names that you hear about in pest control that don't have local offices in Montana.
Yeah. There's lots to learn to be effective in this business, isn't there?
Yeah.
What all does Custom West do to stay up to date and be on the cutting edge and as effective as you can?
Yeah. So our professional associations, I think, have really allowed us to do that. And, of course, using suppliers that are at the national level have always been a great resource for us.
Excellent. Well, how do we get a hold of Custom West Pest Control?
So we always encourage people to take a look at our website. We put a lot of emphasis and focus on that. We are known as MissoulaPest.com. You can also look up CustomWestPest.com. Our local office, our dispatch office for all of our operations in Western Montana is at 406-728-4447.
Nate Nunnally, owner of Custom West Pest Control on Missoula Real Estate today. Great job. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today. We hope you found this morning's information to be helpful. If you have any suggested topics for any future Missoula Real Estate Today programs or any questions about buying or selling, contact Diane Beck with Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@realtor.com or visit her website homesinmissoula.com. That's homesinmissoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.